Have you ever wondered what therapists really talk about when they're off the clock? Are you looking to embrace open discussions about mental health while also laughing and relating to real content? Well, if so, you found the right place. Welcome to Unfiltered Therapists, a Kindred Roots Therapy Inc. podcast where the world of therapy meets candid conversations. Our podcast is tailor-made for those who are ready to navigate life's challenges with humor, authenticity, and a dash of therapy wisdom. Our mission is very clear here: to make therapy accessible and inviting. We want you to feel like you're part of our circle, relating to our discussions and finding nuggets of insight that resonate directly with you. Whether it's conquering anxiety, embracing self-acceptance, discovering the latest therapeutic approaches, or just wanting to listen to other people bitch about their moms, we've got you covered. Join us as we kick back, shoot the shit, because believe it or not, us therapists do that too, and explore the depths of mental health, the human experience, and the overall road to wellness. We'll be here to answer your questions, discuss the topics you're most curious about, and create an atmosphere that feels like sitting on a cozy couch, chatting with your friends. If you're ready to laugh, not in agreement, and feel like you're part of a supportive community, hit the subscribe button and get ready for unfiltered conversations. This is Unfiltered Therapists, and we're about to break barriers, embrace growth, and invite you to join in this journey of true, authentic self-discovery. Let's do this. Okay. Hello, Aimee and Ellie.
Hello. Hi.
I am so excited that you guys agreed to do this. I was saying to Aimee, right before Ellie, when you came in, I'm so grateful because I feel like ever since I came to the experience, I have been talking about all things Desire on Fire in every client session. And a lot of my clients are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And what is going on? And there's been so many things where I'm like, I have to take back a bunch of things I taught you. I want to change my mind. So every time I explain this, I'm like, I just want people to hear it from you. So I'm so grateful that you guys made time for this. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you for asking and having us on.
Yes.
So happy to be here.
I feel like I cannot do justice to introducing both of you. And in saying that, I kind of wanted to just open with you guys explaining what is Desire on Fire, who are both of you as individuals, and what is this whole thing?
Great question. Hard to encapsulate into a few sentences, which I know is why you're probably at a loss in trying to, and we are too at times. But we are intimacy coaches, and we like to playfully call ourselves sisterhood evangelists because we're so committed to supporting women and having deep truth-telling sisterhood and having that be a foundation for great, thriving romantic relationships and a purpose-filled life. And we run our company Desire on Fire, leading retreats and programs and large events and all sorts of things focused on intimacy, sexuality, living a turned on life. And really the actual basis of our work is freeing ourselves of victim consciousness, which we talked about today on a call inside of our program, Pleasure Mastery, which you're in, and also really coming into a deep place of personal responsibility in our lives and allowing that to be the conduit, allowing that to be the thing that creates more pleasure, more abundance, more peace in our lives, more ease. And our work's all about pleasure and intimacy, but really we focus on personal responsibility, and it doesn't sound as sexy. So we don't usually lead with that, but that truly for us has been the key to our freedom and accessing more pleasure in our lives.
Yes, I love that. It's so funny because oftentimes, when I explain what happened at the experience, what I'll say to people is it was oh, come here and learn how to have a more satisfying sex life and what are blocks to intimacy. And at the time that I went, I was in not a great headspace, and I was I don't have capacity for anything. I'll learn some good stuff for my clients, but I'm actually fine. I'm good. I don't need anything.
Yeah.
And then it was within 30 seconds, I was just trigger. And I was wow, this is a lot. And I remember at one point, I think it was you, Aimee, who made a comment we can't just tell you guys like, hey, come to this experience and get triggered for 3 days. Like that's not like easy to sell. And it was so true how I think for a lot of people in hearing like, oh, you're going to this experience that is around intimacy. And I really want to spend some time talking about masculine, feminine, because this is a contentious use of words, specifically in the therapy realm. So I really want to go there. And when I was explaining to people, like, it's a feminine energy workshop experience, healing sisterhood, a lot of people were like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then coming back and explaining that it was about taking radical accountability for my own bullshit and recognizing like where we love to blame other people and things for issues in our own lives, and like taking so much accountability in like every little capacity. Everyone was so confused. So,
like, how are those things related? I thought you were going to like a women's sisterhood weekend.
Yeah, they're like, was it like loving and like warm? I'm like, it was. It's just
it's
a
both.
lot. It's
Yeah,
both.
it's both.
Yeah.
So much love, so much warmth, so much compassion, so much play inside of our containers and inside of our workshops, and deep, like you said, triggering, but activating, whatever you want to call it, right? It activates the stuff that isn't you, right? The conditioning, the patterns, the identities that we are so attached to, all of that gets stirred up in our work and in the containers that we create, including for us. We're not immune to that. Like, we are so in work with all of our clients and all the participants in our programs, because this is a journey that we're all on together.
Yeah. Kate, that actually leads me to like one question that I always have when I'm like in anything with you guys. Do you guys fight? Like, do you guys disagree a lot? Has it been hard being partners? Like, what's your personal relationship like?
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't. And we are recently on the other side of a huge initiation in our relationship. And just to give
kind of our first tension, conflict, really. In 7-8 years of friendship, 5 years of business.
Wow.
Yeah. We started our business in 2018. We hosted our first retreat together, and we definitely have had like, we're amazing teachers for each other. We're very different. So I am more on the side of the spectrum of the people pleaser, kind of caretaker personality, more of a doormat in my relationships, appeasing. Yeah. So I fall more to that side of the spectrum in my, when I'm in my patterns. That's kind of how it plays out. And Amy's very different, like opposite side of the spectrum. You can say how yours plays out.
Yeah, mine plays out more dominating, more talking about the drama triangle, which we taught today in our program. I more default to the persecutor, the one that is more challenging, the one that's more kind of righteous. Like, that's where my default goes when I'm in my patterns.
And so we've been really powerful teachers for each other, because through our sisterhood and leading together and creating together, like, I really believe that the best way to learn is to teach. Like, I feel like my path really began when I started leading and teaching others, because if you're leading with integrity, you have no choice but to really face yourself and your patterns and your deepest shit. And so Amy's been an amazing teacher for me in learning how to have a backbone, how to speak my truth, how to, really be honest with myself and others in a way that I just genuinely couldn't, when I started this journey. And it's been so empowering and so allowed me to access such a different part of myself than I had access to before.
And vice versa. For me, Ellie's taught me so much around softening, revealing, letting my emotions be revealed, letting my weaknesses, my fears, my insecurities, my comparison, my jealousy. Like, Ellie's so generous with her emotional expression and sharing what's coming up for her and not being afraid of looking weak. And that is so expansive for me, because my patterns have me want to protect myself from looking weak. And so then I'm tempted not to reveal my tenderness. And Ellie has helped me so much in softening and revealing more of my tenderness.
Yeah.
So for many years, we've been on a path of really learning those lessons together. And then about 3 months ago, we faced the biggest challenge that we faced in our relationship. And really what it came down to is we had to look at where we have similar patterns, right? Because we just spoke to the differences, but the similarities is that we are both driven, ambitious, go-getter women who have been conditioned, within the boss babe culture that so many of us are, have been immersed in.
Yeah.
And we've really had to look at ourselves because we've had to face how that wasn't serving us. And it's been very challenging and ultimately very freeing. And we've really experienced a fundamental shift, like in the bedrock of our personalities and identities.
And certainly in our business.
Of shifting out of that masculine hustle mode and really more into our feminine and our receptivity and our
trust,
softening and trust. And it's been, we could record hours about this. It's been such an awakening and so important for the work that we do and so not easy. It's required huge trust and surrender and
major ego deaths.
Yep. And we had conflict inside of it. Totally. Like those parts of ourselves were not going to go down without a fight. But we're so committed, and we have so many tools that we teach women that we very much practice ourselves. We are not perfect, but we are very much practitioners of this work, in how we embody and practice sisterhood, real truth telling, committed, heart-led sisterhood.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think what's really funny is like, and I said this one day and I was like, I hope that this isn't offensive, but I was like, you guys give me like I think that what makes your partnership so amazing is that you're so different, because I'm always like, in doing lessons with both of you, it's like Jekyll and Hyde in like the most loving way, where it's like you hit, I think, parts in every single person's personalities, but you really embody those parts. And then to see them interact is like proof that both have to exist synonymously in order for things to be balanced. Like you can't be all one or all another. Like no one's aiming for that. And to like physically watch two parts sit beside each other is fascinating. Like as a mental health professional, when I like sit and watch you guys do things together, I'm like, it's like actually when we are like, imagine your parts at a table. I'm like, they're at a table. They are at a table right now. Like it's
I love hearing that.
weird.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it so much. And I think like that is probably the most magical part of everything you guys have created, is it's not one voice. Like it's two voices, one lesson, and then like watching them play out. You kind of gave an amazing segue to the masculine feminine, where you were saying like, our business was going ultra masculine. Okay. Explain this to the world in a way where oftentimes I think that the words masculine and feminine are incredibly emotionally triggering, because people see them from a very gendered perspective. And then in teaching the words masculine and feminine, especially as a trained social worker, the language can be extremely hard to get across to people, because it feels like we are not being inclusive to all other gender and sexual identities. So I would love for you guys to explain this the way that you did at the experience, because again, when I first came in, I was like, these bitches are going to try and say that these are the only two things. And then like within 10 minutes, I was like, oh, never mind. I get it. It's fine. So, please explain what it is.
So good.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this. And I'll just say, if the terms masculine and feminine, throw you off, then some teachers of ours, Justin Patrick Pierce and London Winters, use the terms alpha and omega.
Ooh.
Just for this season, to take it away from gender, because it really is not necessarily about gender, even though it can be useful if you find it useful. But if you don't, then you can take it out of the gendered terms. And very simply, the alpha or the masculine energy is it is drive. It is direct. It is
Dominant. Yeah.
Leading.
Yeah. Foundational structure, right? Systems. It's the banks of the river, right? The solidity. And that is not gender, right? That is just energy. We have masculine and feminine energy within us, all of us, no matter our gender identity. And so just being able to recognize and relate to this type of energy, which for me, it's like, yes, of course you can have the argument that all of this is made up because everything is made up, right?
Yes.
We're giving meaning to everything. But for me, it's been super empowering to just have language and kind of have words for these different kinds of energy. And I personally, well, we'll talk about feminine, but I personally want to be more in my feminine energy or my omega energy. And so then knowing, well, what does that mean? And what does that look like? Then I actually have something to practice, right? Something that I can actually work with versus this like super ambiguous thing that I can't really grasp. So
Love that.
Feminine
or omega is receptive. It is
soft, flowing. It's not always soft, right? But that can have that quality, right? Soft, flowing, allowing. It's the energy of allowing. What else? Can be nurturing energy, creative energy. So that's more omega or feminine.
And not to get all woo-woo here.
Go into the woo-woo. We love a little woo-woo.
Okay. But I really love human design as a, as a modality. I don't know if you ever talk about that on your podcast, but
we never have. And it's so funny you're bringing this up because we literally just had a conversation as a team yesterday about human design work. And we were like, we should do it as a team. Like, again, just a weird thing. I feel like every time anything comes up DOF related, like the timing is always like strangely exactly how conversations have been going in real life. So that's my woo-woo. I'm like, okay, what is this? But yeah, it just came up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, human design is amazing. Highly recommended. And if you want to have someone on the podcast, we can recommend someone.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Incredible way of just understanding your energy. And it's tied to astrology, the Chinese I Ching system. It's like come from these ancient modalities, but it was channeled by this guy, I think in like the 70s or something. So it's fairly new, but it's a really profound way of kind of understanding your vessel and how unique we each are. And in the human design system, what they teach is that, and I find this very empowering and kind of a way of understanding what is happening on the planet right now. They teach that we are moving out of the last like 200 years or so we've been on the planet in a masculine energy, in a alpha energy. And you've seen that, right? Where all the structures have been built, right? The banking system, the educational system, like we've been the industrial age, like we've been in such a do, go, build, create, mode, building the structures and the systems. And part of the chaos and the rupture and the disruption that's happening right now that we see globally is that, according to human design, we are moving into a more yin is another way of describing it, right? Like yin and yang.
Yes.
Yin, feminine, omega energy as humanity. And I think this is part of the struggle that people are going through is because we feel that, right? We're being asked to become more emotionally vulnerable. People are going through this. It's like all of a sudden, this wasn't a conversation 10 years ago where it's like people are having to face their shadows and their shit in their intimate partnerships. And people are getting so challenged by that, right? And people are learning, right? Waking up and learning, like, I don't have to do it all myself. Like I can trust. And it seems like when I do trust the universe or a greater plan or that things kind of work out but it's so new. And the waves of the old way are like crashing on the shore of the new way. And so people are really struggling and grappling. And I think this is why we see the rise of like, people seeking therapy and coaching and different modalities and support because we need help. We need help to learn how to be in the more omega energy. And this is men, women, whatever your gender or identity, this so transcends that.
Yes.
This is every human is being initiated into this. So yes, I like giving that context because I think people can feel it.
Yes.
But we don't always have like language or context to explain what we're experiencing. So for me, that's been empowering and been like, okay, this is why this is a conversation. It's not like, yeah, it's actually useful. And if I can get out of whatever judgments I have, then how can I see this as a conversation that could support me in getting more of what I want?
100%.
Thriving relationships.
Yes. And I think that something that's been so resonant has been that I think for a lot of people, when they assume that you're going to a women's event, a feminine event, that it's going to be like, screw men, fuck all men, fuck everything about the masculine. And it feels like it will be a blamey space. And I think it speaks so like on such a huge level about the idea that it's like them versus us type mentality. It's like only one person is on top of this, and like this almost like extreme feminism that started to occur where it was like, in order to be a feminist, I have to shit on my counterparts by being the best of the best. And it was so fascinating to come into a space and realize that like how untrue that actually is, and how it is actually deeply rooted in connection more than it is in like self-development. And I think that a lot of these events, when you frame it as self-development, feels like a tiered, like I need to ascend to this level of myself and then I will be worthy, validated, whatever it is. But to actually realize that like in getting knocked down a notch, it's not about feeling belittled. It's about like, what are we aiming for? Like, what is the goal here? And I feel like that's what we've missed so much of. And I'll admit that like, I think one of the biggest eye-opening experiences in the initial introduction to the work that you guys do is that I realized that a lot of traditional therapy is highly masculine. And a lot of the ways that traditional therapy is taught is highly masculine or alpha. And I think that in a lot of ways in our industry, what happens is that anything that is considered to be more omega or feminine gets grouped into like this like woo-woo. When we call it woo-woo, it's the spiritual. That's the spiritual. It's
and
not evidence-based.
Diminish
right?
it. Yeah.
It's insane. Because even now when you were like, I am like, I'm now trying to be like, we are a professional mental health space that absolutely invites woo-woo. Bring the woo. Let's talk about it. Let's have these conversations. And there's a lot of rejection in our industry around like, that's not evidence-based.
Right.
What is evidence? What are we aiming for? What's the goal? So I wonder as coaches, because I'd be curious to know how in the work that you guys are doing and the realistically at this point global reach that Desire on Fire has, what has been your experience from a more, let's say, like regulated professional mental health perspective? Has there been a push and pull there, any sort of rejection? Like how has that showed up for both of you?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, this is a great question. I just want to speak briefly to what you said. There was so much beautiful stuff in that question. But you said the thing about going into a, feminine empowerment space and kind of expecting this like us versus them, men versus women, putting men down, like we're going to rise above them who have, like, what's the word? They've
oppressed us.
And I just want to bring that conversation of us versus them, oppressor versus oppressed, is not unique to the feminine empowerment space, right?
No.
This is everywhere in our world and our culture right now.
Yes.
And it's actually the exact thing that inside of our work we are seeking to help people dismantle.
Yeah.
And ultimately, rise above, because our freedom doesn't lie in changing the system in order to to help us get somewhere or feel better. I'm not saying that there aren't systems that don't work. That is absolutely true. There are systems that we could do certainly with dismantling.
Yeah. Changes need to be made.
But ultimately, each person's individual power lies in stepping outside of that narrative of, you know, these people need to change in order for me to be able to thrive or me to be okay.
Yes.
And so we don't even talk about the patriarchy. And it's not that the patriarchy doesn't exist, you know, but we don't even get into that conversation, because the truth is that a woman's sex life and intimate relationships with anyone are not going to thrive when she's stuck in a conversation of blaming the patriarchy, which often in our culture equates to men.
Right.
They're conflated, even though that's not reality, right? It's like, we need to decouple the fact that there's men and then there's patriarchy, right? And the men alive on the planet today are not responsible for, you know, what's been going on for however many hundreds of years. So,
and are equally damaged by that structure.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is what that could be a whole conversation. We are so deeply committed to serving women and serving men, because it's absolutely true. Men are just as much, if not more, they're suffering. I think some could argue more than women right now,
which is a controversial thing to even address, to even acknowledge, to even look at, because there's so much defensiveness around defending the impact of these systems or of these also mindsets, but the defensiveness, the justification of who is hurt most, who is wronged most, who is most oppressed. It's the oppression Olympics. And instead of it being a conversation of how can I be responsible for stepping outside of these narratives and claiming to have the life that I want to have and the relationships I want to have, which is the work that we do.
Exactly. And I was going to say, like, something I say to my clients often is like, there's no shortage of suffering. Like, there's not like a bucket of suffering and it's like, oh, you can have 80% and I get 20. Like, it's more than enough suffering to go around. And one of the things that I think has been such an incredible lesson, that it actually came up in our third episode with Zach Watson, was the difference between using the words and but, and in saying, like, yes, we are suffering as a result of the systems in which the last 200 to 500 years of the world has operated. And so are all of the counterparts of other gender identities for their own right in how this is affecting them too. And I think that that's something that people don't expect when you go into a healing space of any capacity that is a pocket of one picture, is it feels like there's going to be camaraderie in the shared experience of suffering, and we are all going to validate each other's victimhood by showing up with each other and being like, yeah, this sucks, and then like staying there. And I think this is where I was not sure where I was going to like take this conversation today, but after today, when we did the drama triangle, I teach this. Probably every client who's ever seen me knows that we've gone through this, but you guys like added a little extra spice to some of it today that I was like, oh, okay. I really want to talk about.
Wait, before you continue,
you go first.
I just want to say one thing, which is that I so what you just said, I think is so so powerful. And you know, the way that we see it is that our culture is sick, essentially. And what people are missing and seeking is community and a spiritual connection.
Yes.
And that is what is so missing from our culture. You know, if you look around the Western world, people are isolated more than ever before. People are not connected to a purpose or a higher power, or, you know, that's just, it's missing. And so what ends up happening is that people seek that, right? And the way that it's available right now is like around this conversation of oppression, and we find our community through that. We find our purpose.
Having a common
Ooh.
oppressor or common villain, right? A common persecutor,
Us versus them.
right? And then
Yes.
bonding over that and being connected around that. Which,
Being like, we need to take that down. We need to fix this. We need
Yeah.
to change this. And it's a natural human need that
totally.
unfortunately, from what I can tell, isn't getting people what they want, right?
No.
It's actually it's not a great solution to a common problem, and it's leading to more polarization, more
Yes.
isolation, more feeling, which is so unfortunate
Disconnection.
because the truth is that in today's society, compared to the rest of human history, we're actually less oppressed than we ever have been. And that's a
Right.
controversial statement, and we don't need to be the whole podcast, but I think that this is why we don't answer every question to all these problems. We don't
Yes.
pretend to, because you asked the question about like the mental health space, and I don't know if this exactly answers that, but I'll just do my best. Is that we don't get into all that. We just we are being the change that we want to see in the world, and
Yes.
creating community and healthy, intimate connection, and a space for empowered personal spirituality. And yeah, it's yeah.
Well, and one thing I just want to add about your question about, how has it been for mental health practitioners, or in our space, we've had so many therapists go through our programs and who are
and get challenged.
and
Oh,
get
yeah.
so challenged. But it's their identity that gets so challenged, right? It's what you said. It's their training, it's their education, it's the very masculine, very alpha, clinical ways of seeing life and psychology and human beings, and we love therapy, right? There's so many beautiful, necessary, powerful mental health resources in the world, and it's so great, and the work that we do is different, and we so encourage everyone, but speaking about the mental health professionals in our community, to just try it on for their own lives, to practice in their own lives, to be a practitioner, be an embodiment of this work, of having personal power and freedom, of being sovereign, of taking personal responsibility, of being in your pleasure, and then allow that to integrate into your work, just like with anybody else in any other profession, in any other relationship or family dynamic. Let that then integrate into your life, however that feels true for you.
Yeah.
And lots of our clients who are therapists have shifted their practice, or have gone into solo practice, or have become coaches as well as therapists, and have been able to really shift the way that they do their work, and have changed their agreements and their contracts and all of that to be, current, right? And legal, and all of the things, and making sure it's super sound, legally sound, and all the other way, energetically sound.
Yes.
But have found ways to really feel fully integrated, and to be able to let go of the conditioning and some of that, the identities that haven't been serving them, and have kept them feeling super limited in their work.
Just for example, we have a client who works inside of a big like hospital system in a big city, and she left us a message the other day and just shared how grateful she is, and how she uses what she learned inside of Pleasure Mastery, which is our program, every day with her clients. And the main thing is not coddling and rescuing them.
Yeah. And I will say that when we talk about like the way that the work in Pleasure Mastery, which I will absolutely get some time from you guys to talk a little bit about, like one of the things that has changed in my entire practice as a result of this is the way that I interview therapists around their ability to not collude with victimhood. And how comfortable are you with confrontation with clients? Because we often are people pleasers. We are in this profession because we're people pleasers, and the grandiosity of our ego thinking that we have totally, like, we are great, we totally know the answers, like no one can touch me, I'm a therapist, like no, I'm great. And then being scared that people will challenge us, so we collude with them, we give them validation for victim consciousness, and learning that that is not at all actually helping people get out of the stuck points and now recognizing that I really want people working in a space that are comfortable calling attention to the habits of our clients that are keeping them stuck. And I think what's so interesting is your entire program really shined a light on how often we think that we found the thing when people identify the trigger, the point, the issue. They call it out and it's this breakthrough and like, wow, I just gave it a name. And then it's like, that's the end of the conversation. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we end up just doing sessions for years talking about that and not, it's okay. It's like we missed this. So now what? The accountability piece of like, okay, well, yes, these people hurt me. The system hurt me. This situation was unfair. It's my choice to allow that to continue to show up in the way that it's showing up.
Yeah.
That flip of the switch has been insane. And I feel like that's where what it is that you guys teach and the mental health space as it has always been, the marriage between those two things is unbelievable. So victim consciousness. Let's go to victim consciousness. Again, the conversation of the day.
Yep.
How would you explain to people in like a really brief overview of like what a victim conscious culture is and how people can identify where they are sitting in their victimhood?
Yeah. Okay, well, simply put, and we actually haven't said this specifically in Pleasure Mastery yet. It's usually actually on the first teaching call of Pleasure Mastery, and we didn't go into it, but it is a very, very simple, not easy way of like frame to kind of check in of if you're in victim consciousness or not. And the frame is that everything is happening for me, not to me. Right. And that is, it's simple. It's a quick little sentence. That's it. But oh my God, do we have reasons and beliefs and stories and evidence and circumstances and lineages of passed down excuses and justifications and to prove that things are happening to us, that we are a victim to our passed down beliefs and trauma and the car accident that we were in, the money shit that
the way
we
our
were.
dad was, the way our mom was, the way our grandfather, the way that the world is, the way our culture is. And it can be really convincing, especially in today's world, because like you've said, this is our culture. And I think what has happened in the mental health field is kind of like a perfect storm, right? Like it's like the therapists were what's the word? Like susceptible, in a certain way. And in their training, it was like, to be trauma informed and to be empathetic and to be these things that are, you would think necessary to be a therapist, but kind of set them up as susceptible to colluding in the onslaught of this victimhood in our culture. And I want to be clear here that we're not in any way denying that real victims exist.
Yes.
Absolutely. Right. Like real abuse, real neglect, real trauma. Absolutely.
Yes.
Exists and happens. Harm, pain.
Real perpetrators exist, right? Things happen. That is absolutely true. And what we're separating out is someone being a victim of a crime or of abuse or of, fill in the blank, and victim consciousness, which is when the victim becomes identified with what was done to them.
Yes.
And over time perpetuates the belief that they are stuck in that position of being a victim. And it becomes an identity and it becomes a way of being in the world that ultimately is extremely disempowering.
Yes.
And not necessary, right? It's actually possible to move beyond that, to heal. But unfortunately, because of the way the world is right now, people are stuck in that, and it is validated. And it is, if you try to help people step out of that, you're called, victim blamer. And there's all kinds of things that are very convincing and powerful to keep this consciousness kind of locked in. And therapists are colluding with it. Same with coaches. I mean, it's everywhere.
For sure.
Therapists aren't to blame. I mean,
No.
it's the
We're all
whole,
in it.
it's the whole industry, and it's the whole world, because we're all part of the same old paradigm of victim consciousness and colluding with the victimhood. And it's what you brought up. It's like therapists being in those sessions, and it's really comes down to our discomfort with other people's discomfort.
Yes.
Right? Our inability to, what we say, hold the sensation in our bodies that might arise, the feelings, the body sensations that might arise given another person's discomfort or wrestling with something that they're wrestling with, that they're challenged by, that they're uncomfortable with, they're feeling a lot about. And actually giving them the dignity of their experience of wrestling with that, of coming to a different conclusion, of seeking out other options and possibilities is so key to them getting out of their victimhood. But we're usually too uncomfortable to let them hit their own bottoms, let them have their own discomfort and see through this process themselves.
Yeah.
Too afraid.
100%. And I think it's abnormal that anyone enters any sort of development, coaching, therapy, working with people because their life has been perfect and they've never had any sort of struggle. Most people end up in this space because they benefited from the work that they gained in this space, and they want to keep giving, or they feel a deep calling towards it. And so with that understanding, we all carry our own baggage. And I think that it's hard sometimes to watch clients be in spaces that resemble the space that you are still actively sitting in, and wanting to give them permission to stay there, because then it's giving us subconscious permission to stay there. Again, that sort of camaraderie and shared suffering mentality. And it is truly one of the things that I think was the best advice I ever got from my current clinical supervisor was the work that you do on yourself is the work that you will do with your clients, and why you have to live with integrity in the things that you say, because we not recognizing our own personal stuff is only going to be dropped onto other people, and then they're going to be confused why nothing is moving. It's that flow that I think we just get stuck in it. We don't move out of it. So I am curious, because you guys have definitely touched on persecuting, rescuing, victiming. We've talked about this a little bit here, definitely today. Can we talk briefly about the drama triangle just for everyone listening?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to leave the floor. Teach in 5-10 minutes what you taught in 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah, well, simply put, so this is called the drama triangle. It's an amazing tool that we use. We learned from one of our teachers, Lynn Forrest, and it was created by a man named Cartman in the 60s or 70s. And he, so simplifying it and putting it into just a few minutes here. There's three roles on this triangle: rescuer, persecutor, and victim. And, as Lynn teaches it, she has an amazing article called The Three Faces of Victim, because actually every position on the triangle is victim.
Yes.
But it shows up in different ways, right? And they all have major payoff, and they all have massive costs.
And it's what happens. It's how we cope with conflict, and it's a dysfunctional way of coping with conflict in our relationships. And because we don't know another way, we try to rescue people, we collapse into victim and try to get people to save us, we persecute, we blame, which is blaming, and just being in that fuck you, this is your fault,
I'm
you're doing
right
this to me.
That's persecutor. I'm right, righteous. You're wrong. Very righteous.
Trying to control and change people.
Domineering.
So we all fall into these, and sometimes multiple times throughout the day. But we tend to have one that we default to. We get stuck in trying to rescue others, and the idea is that if we can shift off of the triangle and really step into what Lynn calls observer consciousness, or our higher self inside of conflict, which none of us were taught to do. So this is why we need this adult education, right?
Yes.
It's like learning these intimacy skills because we need them, to go where we're going as humanity.
Yes.
And so if we can do that, then we can step into really like seeing other people as whole and complete and capable, shifting our fundamental perspective, right? Of like, people don't need me to rescue them.
Yeah.
People aren't victims, even though something might have happened to them. I don't need to save them from that.
Or from feeling the effects of that thing that they went through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think something that was said today that I was like, oh, that slaps. One was that rescuing leads to entitlement, leads to resentment. And I think what's really interesting is in the past, when I've taught drama triangle work in client sessions, again, I think it's an ego defense. It's a lot easier to say, I'm a starting gate rescuer. It sounds a lot nicer than being like, I'm a starting gate victim. I'm a starting gate persecutor. But then to realize that like rescuing is not what it sounds like. Like the word sounds lovely, but it's not what it really is. And being like, oh, I don't want to admit that I'm entitled. Like that kind of sucks. I don't love that.
Yeah.
And then the other piece being that none of these positions exist without the other. So when you are a rescuer, you basically lock people into being victims. You lock people into persecuting. And we want to so easily like put our egos into boxes that feel palatable. And I would love to just have I feel like I could talk to you guys and do like a full 14,000 hour podcast on all of the things. Cause like shadow work's another incredible hotspot.
Yeah.
And
well, I just want to say one thing to what you just said, which is that, we think like, because there's so much like praise that we get in our society for being helpers, for being, fixers, for being, especially those of us in a helping profession, we get so many like ego kind of hits for doing that. And we feel temporarily like good when we're able to help someone or make them feel better. But what the shift for me and, so many people we've worked with has been around really understanding the victim triangle, especially the rescuer position, is that ultimately the rescuing is selfish because it's not really about the other person.
For me.
It's for me to feel better. It's for me to temporarily relieve my discomfort at their suffering or their struggle. And so I intervene and temporarily get that hit and make myself feel better, but I am leaving them worse off. And that is what is so hard to see, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it really would drastically change most people's lives and our culture if we could see that people don't need to be rescued. They really don't. And so often we deprive them of the growth that, and sometimes it looks very messy, but that they have to go through in order to become empowered, in order to step into who they're meant to be. And we get in the way of that when we rescue for our own selfish motives.
Yes, definitely. I am foreseeing that as soon as everyone listens to this, they're going to have questions. Where can they learn more about you? Where can they keep listening to all of this stuff? How do they do pleasure mastery? What the fuck is pleasure mastery? Can you give a summary of where people can find you, how they can follow you, and what type of programs they can look forward to in the future?
Yeah. It's a good question because we've been kind of not really sharing anything lately.
You can keep your secrets. I won't force you.
No. I mean, we're of course on Instagram. That's the best place to be connected with us, at Desire on Fire. And then we both have our personal pages, which are linked through the Desire on Fire Instagram. And we have desireonfire.com, our website, and we have our podcast, Desire on Fire. And we're getting back into podcasting. We're kind of going to get back into posting soon because we've been going through such a major transformation and metamorphosis in our own lives. We don't quite feel ready to share. We're like, how do we even express ourselves in this new way? Because it's so easy to default to the old. And so we're taking our time coming back into expression on the public channels.
And also the doors open to, start your path with Desire on Fire once a year.
Yeah.
So we just closed, like we had our, you know, our big event and our influx, and then we really focus on delivering the work to our clients and to our community. And we have like over 100 women right now going through Pleasure Mastery, as you know. And so it's kind of this funny thing where, you know, people can't just join at any time, but the podcast really is the best way to learn from us, to stay in the loop. We have people who are like, I went back and listened to all your podcasts, and like people will get so much. It really is like a whole library of resources.
Mhm.
And then, just stay tuned for the next time we open our doors. We do the Pleasure Revolution, which is our big virtual kind of summit. And we will likely be doing that at the end of next year or early 2025. So
amazing.
That, and we'd love to have you if you feel called. And it really is a you know, as you know, because you're in it, it's a deep journey and worth waiting for. If you're hearing this now and wanting to dive in,
I'm like, follow it, just follow. And again, I don't know what it is about timing, but it'll land exactly where it's supposed to be. And I do remember listening to one of your older podcasts where I think one of you was like, we don't know if we're going to do another full Desire on Fire experience. Like, maybe we will, maybe we won't. And I was like, no, like I was like devastated. And it was after I came back.
I can update you on that, because part of the transformation that we've been in is shifting from we've always had, you experienced it, like big production value at our events. And we have an incredible stage and a, you know, fancy space and outfits and makeup and all these things. And we've really been in the inquiry since this last event, and also since I've become a mother, and just our own evolution more into our feminine energy of really, what does an event look like that is easeful for us and fully in integrity, and that really does what we are there to do. And we've just been to the highest level, right? Because our events are amazing, and it's really my husband who's like, the makeups, the outfit, the stage, like, you're there to help women get messy and vulnerable and be themselves.
Like, is this truly serving your community? Even though it's fun, even though it's beautiful, even though all of that, is it truly serving the thing that you're committed to providing? And that's what we're in the inquiry of. So we're certainly going to keep doing events and all of our programs, and it's going to be even deeper and more real and more raw. And we're discovering the new form.
Well, I can't wait to see what happens. I've only been in this path with both of you since mid-October, and I have loved just watching both of you evolve and be brutally honest about it. I know for people who have been with you a lot longer than that, the unbelievable growth that they speak to, I can only imagine like what watching that is. And you know, both of you are located in Austin, Texas. I am in just outside of Calgary, Alberta. And I cannot tell you how many people are like, please tell me when this event's happening. I'm coming next year. I want to do this. My own team is like, we all want to go. I'm like pretending I'm Aimee and Ellie. I'm like sitting at a table. I'm like, let's talk about, I don't know, let's try this out. Let's see how this lands. Like, so I'm just so excited for everything that you guys are doing and the future of this work. And I am just so grateful that you guys landed in my life in some way, shape, or form. So thank you so much.
Oh, such a pleasure.
Allegra. What a juicy conversation. I so acknowledge you for how you are challenging the status quo inside of your industry and pushing new edges. And you're clearly a trailblazer and a thought leader. And I'm so grateful and moved by the people that will work with you and the impact that I can feel that you're having.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
And your clients and your peers.
And how fully you're taking this on. Like, it's just, I love knowing that you came to the experience being like, oh, I may get some things for my clients. And you've so fully, beautifully, like radically opted into this full on personal transformation, which ultimately is going to, you know, I'm sure is serving your clients so deeply.
Everyone.
It really isn't a reflection of like you get what you put in. And I like, yeah, full transparency. I had no intention of coming. My cousin, who's been part of your community for a long time, has been asking me to come for like 2 years. And I was like,
Ooh.
Jamie McClintock is my cousin. Yeah. Yeah. She has yeah, she's my, I call her like, she's my cousin, but she's really like my sister, my mentor, my other half, like the one of the loves of my life. And she is like, you have to come, you have to come, you have to come. And I was in a really bad spot. And she was like, listen, I've got a ticket for you. I've got a hotel room. We've got the dates. Book your flight and just show up. And I was like, fine. And the whole time coming, I was just like, okay, like, we'll see. And like, I swear, I used to say I'm not a crier, which is hilarious. That's not true. But like, I swear you guys came out the day of the first experience. You guys came out, did your dance, which by the way was the most triggering because I was like, oh, dancing's weird, but here we go. Just to give a little bit of a, you know, the
dance into where you were.
Yeah. And then you both went on stage and you looked at each other and you started crying, and I could feel the work, the accomplishment, the connection, the love. I didn't have any context for anything that was to come. And I instantly started sobbing and I was like, uh-oh. You like, just your entire impact and everything is incredible. I wish it on everyone. So yes, I'm so grateful. Thank you both. I hope you have a great day. And thank you for everyone listening. More to come. Okay.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.